want to speak to you today about something that each and every one of us struggles with at one point or another. It's a battle we fight in the quiet corners of our hearts and minds. It's something that robs us of our peace, steals our joy, and burdens us with a weight too heavy to bear. That thing is worry. I know there are many of you in this room right now who are carrying heavy burdens. Maybe you're concerned about your health, your finances, your family, your future. The weight of your worries can feel unbearable, can't it? You wake up with that sense of dread. You lie down at night exhausted, your mind still racing with all the things that could go wrong, all the things you can't control. But I want to tell you something today, and I want you to hear it loud and clear. You don't have to carry that burden alone. That's right. The worry, the fear, the anxiety. God did not intend for you to carry those things on your own. And yet, we do it, don't we? We try to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We try to figure it all out. We try to control every little detail of our lives, even when we know deep down that we can't. We try to fix things, solve things, manipulate things into place. And it's exhausting. But here's the truth. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to figure it all out. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't have to be in control. Why? Because there is someone who is in control, someone who has seen the end from the beginning, someone who knows your heart, who understands your struggles, and who is ready and willing to carry that burden for you. I'm talking about God, the creator of the universe, the one who knows every detail of your life, every hair on your head, every tear that falls from your eyes. When we surrender our worries to Him, when we lay down our fears and anxieties at His feet, we are not only admitting that we can't do it all ourselves, we are also trusting in the one who can. When we stop trying to control every circumstance and let God lead us, we find a peace that goes beyond what we can understand. We find a peace that surpasses the chaos of the world around us. I know it's not easy. I know you've been hurt. I know the world doesn't always make sense. And I know you've been through things that seem impossible to overcome. But here's the thing. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to worry about it anymore. There is a way forward. And that way is through trusting God with your life. When you trust in Him, when you give Him the reins, when you let Him lead you, you'll discover a freedom you never thought possible. A freedom from worry, a freedom from fear, a freedom that comes only when you let go of control and let God take over. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to stop carrying that weight. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to wake up in the morning without that knot in your stomach, without that burden on your shoulders. Imagine going through your day with the peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, that He's got your back, that He's leading you step by step. Can you picture it? Can you feel that sense of relief? But here's the catch. You have to make the decision. You have to choose to stop worrying and trust God. It's not something that happens automatically. It's a choice you make every single day. You have to choose to let go of your fears, your doubts, and your need to control. You have to choose to trust God's plan, even when you don't understand it. And that's hard, I know. I know because I've been there. I've faced moments of uncertainty and fear. I've stared down challenges that seemed insurmountable, moments when I thought I couldn't go on. But what I've learned is this. When I stopped trying to fix everything on my own and started trusting God with my life, that's when I found peace. That's when I found rest. God doesn't want you to be weighed down by worry. He wants to take that burden from you. He wants to carry it for you, and He is more than able. No matter what you're facing today, no matter what you've been through, no matter how big the storm seems, God is bigger. He's bigger than your problems. He's bigger than your fears. And he is ready to lead you to something better, to something greater, to something beyond what you could ever imagine. All he asks you to do is to trust him, to let go, to stop trying to control every outcome and instead rest in his promises, to know that he is faithful, that he is with you, and that he will never leave you or forsake you. This is not about passivity, my friends. This is about action, the action of faith, the action of trust, the action of choosing to believe that God is who he says he is and that he will do what he says he will do. This is not about sitting back and doing nothing. This is about stepping forward in faith, even when you can't see the full picture. This is about choosing to trust God, even when the path ahead seems unclear. You might be thinking, but what if I make the wrong decision? What if I trust God and things don't turn out the way I expect? I understand that fear. It's a natural fear. But I want to remind you of something. God's plan for your life is always greater than your own. Even when things don't go the way you think they should, even when the road is rocky and uncertain, God is using every moment to shape you, to grow you, to lead you into something better. Remember, God is not asking for perfection, he's asking for obedience. He's asking for trust, and he's asking you to follow step by step without fear, without worry. And he promises without fail that he will lead you. You may not know what tomorrow holds. You may not know how you'll get through your struggles, but I want you to know this. God knows, and he will lead you through every step, every challenge, every fear. He will lead you. So today, I challenge you. I challenge you to stop worrying. I challenge you to lay your burdens down, to stop carrying what you were never meant to carry. I challenge you to trust God with your future, with your dreams, with your fears, and with your life. God has a plan for you. He has a way forward, and it's not through your own strength or understanding. It's through his guidance. It's through his leading. And when you trust him, when you let go of the worries that weigh you down, you will experience a peace like you've never known before. So, my friends, I ask you today, will you trust him? Will you stop worrying and let God lead you? The choice is yours. The peace is waiting for you. Will you take it? Will you surrender your worries and let God lead you? Worry is a burden that many of us carry, often without realizing just how much it impacts our lives. It sneaks into our hearts and minds, silently stealing our peace and robbing us of the joy we're meant to experience each day. It's an invisible weight that we wear, sometimes so heavy that it feels like we're carrying the world on our shoulders. And yet, we don't always recognize just how much it's affecting us until we feel drained, exhausted, or disconnected from what really matters. When we worry, we become consumed by the what ifs. What if my health deteriorates? What if I lose my job? What if my family struggles or my children face hardships? What if the future turns out differently than I hope? These thoughts swirl around in our minds, amplifying our fears and doubts, and the weight of them can feel unbearable. We try to solve these problems in our heads, imagining every possible scenario, trying to prepare for what might happen. But the more we think, the more we spiral. Uh, It's easy to think that by worrying, we're actually doing something about our problems, that we're being responsible or proactive. But the truth is, worry doesn't solve anything. It only deepens the sense of fear and it clouds our judgment. When we're consumed by worry, we're not focused on the present moment or on the things we can control. Instead, we're stuck in a cycle of anxiety that keeps us from experiencing the peace and clarity that we truly need. This is the paradox of worry. It seems like something we need to hold on to in order to protect ourselves, but in reality, it only holds us back. It holds us back from enjoying the blessings of today, from living fully in the present, and from trusting that everything will work out the way it's meant to. Worry creates a barrier between us and the good things that God has in store for us. Instead of focusing on the ways we can move forward, we remain stuck in the mire of what could go wrong. The struggle with worry is universal. It's not limited to a particular age, background, or stage of life. Whether you're young and trying to figure out your future, or you're older and facing health concerns or the weight of financial burdens, worry can show up at any time. It doesn't matter if you're a parent or a single person, a student or a business owner. The threat of worry is always lurking. It's as if the more we care about something, the more vulnerable we are to the weight of worry. The people we love, the dreams we hold dear, and the futures we hope for can all become sources of anxiety if we let worry take root in our hearts. And yet, despite our universal this struggle is, we're not meant to carry it alone. The truth is, worry doesn't serve us. It doesn't protect us, it doesn't prepare us for the future or equip us to face life's challenges. It only robs us of the peace that is available to us right now. It leaves us anxious, fearful, and overwhelmed, which takes us away from the life we were created to live. So we must recognize that while worry may be a natural response to life's uncertainties, it is not the path to peace. It's a thief that takes what we need most: our peace of mind, our joy, and our ability to live in the present moment. And the hardest part is that we often don't realize we're allowing it to steal from us until we're already drained and weary. But there's a better way. There's a way to lay down the burden of worry and step into the freedom that comes from trusting in something greater than ourselves. It begins with acknowledging that worry, no matter how much we feel it's justified, isn't the answer. The answer lies in surrendering our anxieties and embracing the peace that God offers. Peace that doesn't come from having all the answers, but from trusting that we are not alone in our struggles. When we realize that worry doesn't control our lives or our outcomes, we begin to free ourselves from its grip. We can step into a space where we allow peace, trust, and faith to guide us instead of being paralyzed by fear. And in that space, we can begin to breathe again, find clarity again, and experience the joy that has been waiting for us all along. There is something deeply profound in the realization that we were never meant to carry our burdens alone. From the very beginning, God designed us for community, for connection, and for a life that is lived in partnership with Him. Yet all too often, we carry the weight of our fears, our doubts, and our worries as if we must face them on our own. We try to manage everything ourselves, believing that we alone have the strength to shoulder the burdens that life throws our way. But the truth is, we were never meant to do this alone. God, the creator of the universe, the one who formed the stars and the oceans, knows every detail of our lives. He knows the struggles we face, the moments of doubt, the times when we feel overwhelmed by the weight of our concerns. And in His infinite love and wisdom, He has made a promise to us. A promise that we don't have to carry our burdens by ourselves. We have a God who is ready and willing to take our worries from us if we are willing to trust Him and let go. This promise is one of the most beautiful gifts that we are offered. It's an invitation to release control and let God lead us. You see, when we hold on to our worries, when we try to manage every detail of our lives, we often find ourselves trapped in a cycle of fear and anxiety. But when we trust in God's guidance, when we surrender our concerns to Him, we open ourselves to a peace that surpasses understanding. It's a peace that isn't dependent on the circumstances around us. It's a peace that comes from knowing that God is with us, that He is leading us, and that He has a plan for our lives that is far greater than anything we could imagine. We were never meant to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Jesus himself said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. This is not just a kind invitation, it's a promise. A promise that if we come to God with our worries, he will take them from us. He will give us rest, not only for our bodies, but for our hearts and minds as well. Think about it for a moment. How much lighter would our lives feel if we truly believed that God is carrying our burdens for us? How different would our outlook be if we allowed Him to take the weight of our worries instead of holding on to them ourselves? When we trust God, we're not saying that our struggles are insignificant. We are simply acknowledging that there is someone far greater than us who can handle them. We are acknowledging that while we may not have all the answers or solutions, He does. Trusting in God's guidance isn't always easy, especially when we can't see the full picture. It's natural to want to control our circumstances, to know what's ahead, and to have a plan for every part of our lives. But here's the beauty of trusting in God. He doesn't always show us the whole map. He leads us step by step. He doesn't ask us to have all the answers. He asks us to trust that He is leading us towards something good, even if we can't yet see the way. When we release control and open ourselves to God's guidance, we don't have to worry about navigating life on our own. We don't have to bear the burden of figuring everything out. We can rest in the knowledge that God is guiding us, that He knows the best path for our lives, and that He is always with us, even in the darkest moments. It's important to remember that God's guidance doesn't always look like we expect it to. Sometimes He leads us through seasons of waiting or through trials that feel difficult. But even in those times, His guidance is there. Even in the moments when we don't understand why things are happening the way they are, we can trust that God is working behind the scenes for our good. He is shaping us, growing us, and preparing us for something greater. When we let God lead us, we are saying, "I trust you. I trust that you know what is best for me. I trust that you will never leave me. I trust that you will guide me in the right direction, even when I can't see it." And when we make that choice, when we surrender our worries and let God take the lead, that's when true peace begins to fill our hearts. God is ready to take our burdens from us. All we have to do is trust Him. All we have to do is surrender the weight of our worries and allow Him to carry them. When we do, we open ourselves to the peace, the rest, and the guidance that only He can offer. So, my friends, remember this: you were never meant to carry your burdens alone. God is with you, and He is ready to take your worries from you. All you have to do is trust Him, let go, and let God lead you. Letting go of worry is not something that comes naturally to most of us. In fact, it often feels like a constant battle. The human instinct is to hold on tightly to what we know, to try to control our circumstances, and to fix everything that's broken or uncertain in our lives. But if we're honest, we know that no matter how much we worry, we cannot control the future. We can't control outcomes, and we certainly can't predict what tomorrow holds. Yet we persist in our worry, thinking that somehow, by holding on to it, we can solve the problem or ease the pain. But here's the truth: letting go of worry is a choice that requires faith. Faith is not something that we can just summon up when we feel like it. It's a decision, a commitment we make in the face of uncertainty. It's the act of choosing to trust that God's plan for our lives is good, even when we can't see the full picture. It's the willingness to let go of our need for control and surrender to the idea that God is leading us somewhere far better than we could have imagined on our own. You see, faith isn't just about believing when everything is going well. It's about trusting when things don't make sense. It's about choosing to rely on God's wisdom when we can't see the way forward. And that's where the power of faith comes in. When we can't figure it out, when the path is unclear, when our worries are overwhelming, faith gives us the strength to let go and trust in something greater than ourselves. Choosing faith over worry means making a conscious decision to trust God with our circumstances, no matter how difficult or confusing they may seem. It's about letting go of the need to control every detail of our lives and trusting that God has a plan that is better than anything we could ever create on our own. Faith is believing that even in the midst of our struggles, God is still at work. It's trusting that He is using every situation, every challenge, every disappointment, and even every failure for a greater purpose. We may not always understand the why behind our struggles, but faith tells us that God has a reason, a purpose, and a plan for it all. Think about it. God sees the full picture. He knows the beginning from the end. He knows what's around the corner, and He knows how every part of our story fits together. We, on the other hand, only see the small slice of life that we are currently walking through. We see the obstacles in front of us, the problems we're facing, and the uncertainty of what's to come. But God sees beyond that. He sees the outcome. He sees the way forward, and He is leading us toward something far better than what we can imagine. When we choose faith over worry, we are acknowledging that God knows better than we do. We are choosing to believe that His plan is greater, His timing is perfect, and His ways are higher than our ways. This is not always easy, especially when life feels overwhelming and we can't see the end of the road. But the beauty of faith is that it doesn't require us to have all the answers. It just requires us to trust. Faith is also about releasing the need to understand everything. Sometimes the hardest part of choosing faith is accepting that we don't have to have all the answers. We don't need to understand every detail of how things will unfold. God doesn't promise to explain everything to us in advance. He simply asks us to trust Him with what we can't see. And here's something powerful. When we let go of worry and choose faith, we begin to experience the peace that surpasses understanding. It's the peace of knowing that we are not walking this journey alone. It's the peace of trusting that God is in control even when we feel out of control. And that peace frees us to focus on the present moment rather than being consumed by the fear of what might happen in the future. Letting go of worry is not passive, it's an act of courage. It's an act of saying, I may not have all the answers, but I trust that God does. I may not know what the future holds, but I know that God is holding me. It's choosing to trust in His goodness, even when circumstances are uncertain. And in doing so, we allow ourselves to experience the peace, joy, and freedom that come from trusting in a God who is always faithful. In the midst of life's challenges, we will always have the choice between worry and faith. The temptation to worry will always be there, lurking in the corners of our minds. But every time we choose faith, every time we choose to trust God instead of giving in to fear, we take one step closer to the peace that God promises. So I challenge you today. When worry creeps in, when fear threatens to take over, make the choice to trust. Choose faith. Choose to believe that God knows better than you do. Choose to believe that He is leading you, even when the way forward isn't clear. And in that moment, you will experience a peace that only faith can bring. There is a profound strength in surrender, a strength that can only be found when we finally release our grip on the things that weigh us down. So often, we live our lives with clenched fists, holding on to our worries, fears, and desires as if they are our responsibility to manage and control. We believe that by holding tightly to everything, we are protecting ourselves. ensuring that we don't lose what we hold dear. But in reality, the more we hold on, the more we rob ourselves of the very peace and freedom we seek. Surrender doesn't come naturally to us. It feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? We're taught from a young age to fight for what we want, to strive, to control our circumstances, to plan ahead and make sure everything goes our way. Surrender feels like weakness to our human instincts. It feels like giving up, like admitting defeat. But in truth, surrender is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of trust. When we surrender our worries to God, we are acknowledging that we are not in control. And that is a powerful act of faith. It's saying, I cannot do this on my own. I cannot carry this weight. I cannot see the full picture. But I know you can, God. Surrender is the recognition that we don't have to have all the answers, and that's okay because God already knows what we need even before we ask. Surrender is about letting go of the desire to control every outcome and allowing God to take the lead in our lives. Little details. It doesn't mean that we stop making decisions or that we become passive in our journey. Rather, surrender means releasing the need to control the results and trusting that God is at work in the process. It's about yielding to his guidance, trusting that he knows the best path even when we can't see it ourselves. It's choosing to allow God to lead us step by step, moment by moment, knowing that he will guide us in the direction that is best for us. When we surrender, we create space for God's peace to fill our hearts, and this peace is unlike anything the world can offer. The peace that God gives surpasses all understanding. It doesn't make sense in the midst of hardship, pain, or uncertainty. It doesn't come from having everything figured out or from knowing how everything will turn out. It's a peace that comes from trusting God's sovereignty even when the storm is raging around us. It's the kind of peace that allows us to rest in the knowledge that we are held in God's hands and that he is leading us through whatever comes our way. So often, we try to control our circumstances in the hope that doing so will give us security or peace. We think that if we can just manage every detail, predict every outcome, and prevent every failure, we'll be safe. But the truth is, control is an illusion. No matter how hard we try, we cannot control everything in life. Life is unpredictable, and that's exactly why we need to surrender. Surrender frees us from the illusion of control. When we let go of our need to manipulate, direct, or manage every situation, we give God room to work in our lives. We stop fighting against what we can't change, and instead, we start aligning ourselves with what God is doing. This is not a passive surrender. It's an active, ongoing choice to release the things we cannot carry and trust God to lead us in the direction he has for us. One of the most beautiful things about surrendering to God is that we don't have to have everything figured out in advance. We don't need to know every step of the journey before we take the first one. God leads us step by step, and he will never lead us somewhere he has not already gone ahead of us. He has a perfect plan for our lives, and while we may not always understand it, we can trust that his way is the best way. Surrendering also opens the door for us to experience God's presence in a deeper way. When we're no longer consumed by the need to control every circumstance, we begin to notice how God is working in our lives, through the people around us, through the lessons we learn, and through the quiet moments of peace he provides. Surrender makes room for us to hear his voice more clearly, to feel his presence more intimately, and to follow his guidance with greater confidence. It's important to note that surrender is not a one time event, it's something we must choose daily. Every day we are faced with the temptation to take back control, to worry about the future, to try and manage our circumstances. But each day we can make the choice to surrender again, to release our worries and trust God once more. The beauty of surrender is that it's a continual act of faith, a continual decision to trust God even when the future is unclear. When we surrender our worries to God, we stop carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. We stop striving to do things in our own strength and start leaning into the strength that comes from God. We make space for His peace, which fills the cracks in our hearts and minds, mending the anxiety, fear, and uncertainty that once ruled us. And as we let God lead us step by step, we begin to walk in freedom. Freedom from the burden of worry, freedom from the need to control, and freedom to live fully in His presence. Surrender is not the end of our journey, it's the beginning of a new way of living, one where God's peace becomes our anchor and His guidance becomes our path. When we choose surrender, we choose peace, we choose trust. We choose to follow a God who is always with us, leading us toward a future far greater than we could ever imagine. In a world that constantly pressures us to be perfect, to measure up, to have everything figured out and under control, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that perfection is what God expects from us. We look at our failures, our mistakes, and our imperfections, and we sometimes feel like we're falling short of what God desires for us. But the truth is, God doesn't require perfection from us. In fact, He never did. What He asks for is something much deeper: trust and obedience. This may sound surprising at first. After all, aren't we supposed to strive for holiness, to become more like Christ? Absolutely. But holiness and perfection are not the same thing. Perfection is about having no flaws, no mistakes, no missteps. But holiness is about choosing to follow God, to seek His heart, and to live in a way that honors Him, even when we're far from perfect. God's desire for us is not that we achieve perfection, but that we walk in obedience, trusting that He will guide us even in our imperfections. Obedience is the key. God doesn't want us to be perfect. He wants us to be willing. He wants us to trust Him enough to follow His lead, to take the steps He calls us to take, even when we don't understand why or how it will all work out. He's not looking for flawless execution. He's looking for a heart that says, "Yes, Lord, I will follow you."